Hello, my friends. It's Andy coming to you live from Orange County, California. And it just seems like I was just on a few minutes ago. It's like deja vu, but a different show. And I won't be stammering around this one as much because I'm going to be talking directly just about what's happening in our country. And that's a lot easier to talk about than personal situations that are going on in my life. But what I want you to do is go to the AndyFalcoPodcast.com, the AndyFalcoPodcast.com, the URL that's right above my head here. And that is to subscribe to the podcast. Given the subject matter in regard to my show, which I obviously will be talking about from time to time, probably more often than not, and that is our political situation and why it's important to have conservative Christians running our country as opposed to the demonic demons, Democrats that are currently running our country in many aspects, have taken control of our country in the election, have taken control of our country in the form of senators that are just horrible people, and the rhinos that are currently in our government. And so we're going to be talking about that a little bit more often. And today, I was just watching Dan Bongino. I didn't know that he was going to kind of be echoing some of the things I'm going to be talking about. But what I was thinking, and the reason I wanted to come on today as we go into 2021 and begin to talk about, who it is that we want to support in government, whether it's in California or across the country, and even school board members. We have to start in our very local elections. It's a really important place to start for all of us that have a chance to vote in upcoming elections. Those races that have to do with, again, school board members, city council members, mayors, representatives within our state, that kind. We really need to concentrate and really understand who is running now, as opposed to what I may have done in my past, which is I don't even know who some of these people are, whether it's people running for the water district or judges that may be running for separate terms. I remember that I would simply just look for if they're the Republican, or I would just say, well, who's the incumbent? And if things have been going pretty good, I would simply vote for the incumbent. And sometimes that could be a Democrat, it could be an independent, to become a Republican. But what I'm asking you, and the reason I wanted to come on tonight, is that we have to not do stuff like that. I may be simply talking to myself. All of you may be a lot smarter than I have been over the years, but sometimes we just seem like we don't have time, right? We get these ballots in the mail. We know who's running for president. We know who's running for governor, and we make really strong decisions to vote for those candidates because they seemingly are more important. But what you have to understand, it is the small races, if you can even say they're small. It's the other races that are probably equally as important as those of higher power, because the president can't do anything really without the support of the Senate, without the support of the Congress, without the support of the separate states. We found during the pandemic that the president has very little power within what's happening within state. When there's rioting, the president actually has to ask for permission to send in the National Guard. He can't just simply send in the National Guard unless things get really bad. So there's a lot of things we have to understand that were realized, that were exposed during all the riots that was going on, all the unrest, all the issues in regard to the pandemic. We realized that, wait a minute, we allowed these mayors to become in power. I mean, you look at Portland, right? Look what the mayor in Portland did to just simply destroy their city. We have a DA in Los Angeles who's simply destroying Los Angeles all by himself. He doesn't need the help of the president. He doesn't need the help of the governor or anybody else. He's simply destroying the city of Los Angeles all by himself because he's refusing to prosecute misdemeanors and probably some felonies in that city. He's moving towards a no bail for many of these crimes. It's, if you get arrested, you just get out with a promise to appear. You don't have to put up any money. It is really one of the craziest things we've ever seen. There's no consequence to committing petty theft. There's no consequence to committing malicious mischief. There's no consequence to stealing a car in many cases, because they're not going to do anything about it. They're not going to prosecute anybody. Nobody's going to be held accountable for the actions in Los Angeles unless you murder somebody. And that's not even always the case. If you are an illegal alien, you commit murder, it's a sanctuary city. You get released. We just had a murderer released here in Los Angeles. I put a post on my personal page about a murderer who got released, but thank God to ICE, who had heard that this person was released, and they took him back into custody because in LA they just simply released him because he was an illegal alien and it's a sanctuary city. So we have to understand that these smaller races are really important. That brings me to talking about Georgia. We have Georgia coming up, and I don't know. I'm not sure. I think I know a couple people that are in Georgia. I'm going to have to search my Facebook and just private message them and say, hey, you got to do the right thing. you got to vote for the Republican senators that are in place. Are they going to be fantastic? I don't know. But I know for sure they're going to be better than the Democrats. There's no doubt in my mind. We cannot have a Democratic, Senate that's going to in Congress ruling what's happening in our country. We really have to work hard in this Georgia election coming up as Republican conservatives and make sure that the Republicans get elected. I know that we have a huge hurdle to overcome in regard to the election corruption that is currently that we know happened within the president the election where the president was simply robbed from getting into a second term through all the corruption that was in place. And in Georgia, that's one of the places where we saw corruption. So we have a huge hurdle. We have to make sure that doesn't happen again. I don't know what safeguards they're putting in. I don't know what's happening. The Democrats are not afraid of just doing it in plain light, in daylight. They're not afraid of you seeing the fact that they're blocking, Republicans, GOP members from watching the ballot counting. They're not afraid to let you know that they're just sending out all these ballots and they're coming back, with only the one, the one person voting, the one person that's running in the presidency. Only the president was elected, not any of the people running underneath the president. None of those boxes were marked, which is highly unusual. They don't care. They go, oh, whatever. Dead people were voting. All these ballots were sent to senior citizens' homes where senior citizens had, they have no clue of who they're voting for. So they just took their ballots and other people filled out their ballots for them and said, hey, let's just take your ballots. It's okay. We'll make sure and mark them appropriately. And then voted for Biden in that case. They don't care about anything. All that stuff is out in public and in the light, and the Democrats don't care. So they'll probably try to do the same thing. So that is a huge hurdle that we're going to have to overcome. But we need people in Georgia to overwhelm the state there with votes for the Republican senators that are running over there. I understand that Jack Hibbs has a ad running over there. He's a California pastor here at Calvary Chapel, Chino Hills. He during the message, he said that he has an ad with him speaking on it about voting for the people that are pro-life. And doesn't even name the candidates that are running in Georgia. That he just says, hey, vote for the candidates that are for pro-life, and you'll be doing the right thing in regard to conservative Christians and really sending that message out to them. Let me see some of these comments that are coming up. We got our Twitter friends that are coming on just laughing, but that's okay. That's always good. What a joke. What the other guy's laughing. I'm not sure who impressed much who that guy is. He's obviously a moron and doesn't know what he's talking about. Hey, Julie, nice to see you. Demorats. Hey, Crinder, nice to see you. You got a double dose of Andy Crinder today. And so we want to make sure that we understand what's happening in our country. Those of you that are in Georgia really need to do the right thing. And so I wanted to address that. The last thing I want to address is that our pastor, again, bringing up Jack Hibbs again over at Calvary Chapel. One thing he talked about is that when our Constitution was created, when our forefathers were brought together to write the Bill of Rights, their Constitution, everything that really began this country, he brought up the fact that it was probably an act of God that brought all these geniuses together, and it was an incredible task that they had to create laws and like, again, a constitution for this country that was that was and is unlike any other country on the planet. And we have different races, we have different religions, we have believers, we have non-believers that are a part of this country, and it's really unlike most other countries that are out there. If you look at a country like China or Korea, there really isn't the diversity that you have in the United States. Now, in Canada, you do, and maybe some other countries, but really, our country is really pretty unique. That you have people trying to break into our country because it's so great. You have people that are constantly trying to become citizens of our country because it's so fantastic. You really don't see that with other countries like you do the United States of America. It is the least racist country on the planet, and is one of the most giving countries on the planet. Does that mean that there's no corruption? No. Does that mean that we haven't made some bad decisions in the past? No. We always have worked towards abolition of slavery from the beginning of our country all the way to where we finally outlawed slavery. We had a civil war in regard to that aspect of it, and that is one of the great parts of our history. And what ended up happening is that we fought, and we won against slavery in the sense that that we did the right thing. That has always been our history. If bad things have happened, we have worked towards trying to correct for most of those things. For the most part, we are at that time in our country again, where we have a whole number of people that are trying to corrupt our country. We have a large number of people that are trying to take our country in a different direction. They are circumventing our Constitution. They want us to become socialist and Marxist in our country, and we simply have to fight against it. That is what's really important that we understand right now. I know many people, and some people that are close to me, that think that our country is doomed. I've seen messages I've gotten from people that there's no hope for our country. I choose not to have that feeling. I choose not to have that take over my life. I am willing to fight until the end for our country. I'm willing to fight till the end for our church. I'm, and our God-given rights that we have in this country. And I'm not willing to give up. The fact that we had a large number of geniuses that just kind of congregated all together, and as Jack said, they didn't all even get along. Not all of them were Christians. Not all of them were even believers, and yet they found that it was important to have God in our country, because God's written into our Constitution. They found that it was necessary to find a way to agree on the things that were best for the country, and even in the areas where they couldn't agree, they found a compromise and were able to develop a constitution and all our Bill of Rights and everything that goes along with it to create a country that was fantastic, and then would go on and still survive a couple hundred years later as we go forward. Unfortunately, what we have right now is a large number of not so bright people that are running our country. We have people simply that could not run a business that are trying to run a country. We have people that are completely corrupt running our country, and that is true. But I always want to believe that good will prevail on some level, and we just have to continue to fight and not give up. And again, like I said earlier, when I was starting this whole conversation, is that we have to start locally and really stay strong locally, and then work out from there. We cannot forget about the small races. We cannot forget about the Senate races in the Congress. The Senate race in Georgia is an example of that. How big that race is. It's huge as we go into the next 4 years. If we lose those seats in the Senate, we are going to have a much tougher time. Again, even with that, I'm not willing to give up. But let's start there. Those two seats that we need to win in Georgia are incredibly important, and we need to encourage anybody that we know in Georgia to vote for those two Republicans they're running in Georgia, and we need to encourage everybody to do that. Let's see what Sandy has to say. Praying you are right. I am a fighter as well. There's a large number of other fighters out there. We have more fighters than I think than we know. What the media wants you to believe, and what social media wants you to believe, at least the people that run social media want you to believe, that there are far more liberals and crazy Democrats out there. I feel strongly that is not the case. I feel strongly that our great president won by probably hundreds of thousands, if not 1 million votes. 80 million people is believed that voted for President Trump, and yet only 70, I think it's shown something like 72 million. 72 million is still a lot of people. Right. And so, but I do think the numbers are larger. I do believe that based on, what I'm hearing from other people, that I follow on social media, and some people like Dan Bongino, who again I was listening to before I came on. And it's funny that he was talking about some of the we have some of the dumbest people right now running our country. People like Adam Schiff and Schumer and Pelosi. In the state of California, we have our dimwit governor. I even hate to say his name because he's just an idiot. You got a governor in New York. You have a mayor in New York. The two states that are handling the pandemic the worst. It's no surprise that it's California and New York, right? It's the two states that have shut down with the greatest amount of restrictions are New York and California. Yet we are the worst in regard to the pandemic. We have more people wearing masks than any other state. Yet we are the worst in regard to the infections of the pandemic. We have the highest taxes, and yet in California we have the highest taxes, and yet we have rolling blackouts because of the fires that were occurring earlier this year. We have. What else do we have? We have what else? There's some other things that are happening. Well, we have the first crime in many of this than in any other state in Los Angeles, and prosecutions than any other state in the union. We have the worst DA who used to be in San Francisco, who's now in Los Angeles, who's not prosecuting misdemeanors. Yet we have the highest taxes. It is really an example of if you vote Democrat in any other state or any other election, just look at California. This is what you're going to get. You're going to get what's happening in California. You're going to get what's happening in New York. These are two of the worst run states in the union. If you look at Oregon and Washington, you look what's happening in Portland. You look what's happening in Seattle in regard to homelessness. That's the one I was looking for earlier when I was trying to figure out what the other one was. We have the most homeless in San Francisco and Los Angeles than any other state in the union. It is tripled. I don't know if it's quadrupled yet, but I know that it's tripled. And that one of the reasons is because they're giving stuff away for free. Who didn't think that giving alcohol and narcotics paraphernalia and giving them free hotels and motels to stay in? Who didn't think in just even in the dumbest minds that we have on the planet, even they would have realized that if you give away free narcotics, free alcohol, free rooms, and free food, that you wouldn't increase the homeless. That doesn't make any sense that anybody thought that was going to help the homeless situation. That is not there's not anybody that I know of other than I don't know anybody that ever thought that was going to help reduce the number of homeless in our state. There's no doubt that we have some of the dumbest people running our states and our country, and it really is up to us to take it back. And so what I'm wanting to come on today is just implore you to stay strong, to no longer stay silent. We've heard about the silent majority for far too long. We can no longer be the silent majority, and we need to begin to take our country back. Sitting back and allowing these idiots to take over our country and our states has gone on for too long, and we need to really take it back. Let's see. You go into some of the comments at 2:23 a.m. Oh, you're still up at 2:23 a.m. Hey, Robert Block, nice to see you. Hey, Diane, nice to see you. And Anne is on. So nice to see you. So we need to start spreading the word. What I do want you also to remember what I said at the very beginning. Some of you joined a little bit late. Is at the top of my screen here. It says the Andy Falco podcast.com. Make sure and go to that URL. That'll take you to my podcast on iHeartRadio, and make sure and subscribe. We're going to hopefully have some people we'll be interviewing in the near future. I'm going to be interviewing our school board members, hopefully more than one, to talk about what you need to know about what's happening in our schools here in California and what may be happening to other schools across the country. I am so happy to report that we've had 3 Republicans, Christian conservatives, get voted into our local school board here in the Placentia Yorba Linda School District. And like I said before, that is where it starts. So having 3 voted in the same election, I think is huge for us down here. And I want to talk to them about what it is that you need to know about why they ran, number one, and what they need to know what's happening here in California in regard to a few issues like sex education and not having to report to parents about certain things that kids are making decisions about the sex, what their sex is going to be, that there's options that they're going to be told to them without and not have to report that to the parents, to having an abortion, to having a whole number of issues that may be brought up in school and are not allowed to tell the parents. That is it's shocking, and just something that we need to be aware of that may be happening in our schools here in California and maybe happening to schools across the United States. So I want to make sure and talk about that with our school board, our new school board members here in Orange County. I had one more subject here. I'm looking on my screen. Oh, I talked about it. And that is that California has the worst COVID-19 spreading in America. And I touched on it earlier. But what is so interesting, as I said before, is that we have right here, it says the poor record has continued. Yesterday alone, California had 22,856 infections. This seems a little ironic, doesn't it? After all, California was the first state to put a lockdown in place. They have arguably been the most locked down state in the country. Since then, they have had a mask mandate starting in June. And according to COVIDcast, 90.87% of Californians were wearing masks. Everything the experts have said to do to fight Corona, California has done, and then some. And yet we are the worst in the country. Something's wrong. Something is terribly wrong with this state. If you want the rest of the country that looks like California to look like California, then vote Democrat. If you want improvement, if you want to look a little bit more like what Florida looks like, and that is they also, it's not like the coronavirus stops at the border of Florida, right? But Florida has a different way of they've opened up. They've instructed people to do their part as far as staying 6 feet apart, and those that are most vulnerable to make sure that they're masked. And yet they've opened up their state. I was just reading from a friend of mine that said we are going to restaurants. Disneyland's open in Florida. They have all of their beaches are open. Not that you're necessarily going to the beach necessarily in wintertime, but all their beaches are open. All of their tourist attractions are open. And yet they are not having the same infections as the state of California, the state of New York. And their population is larger than the state of New York, not bigger than the state of California, but their population is larger than the state of New York. And yet New York is probably number 2 in regard to infections. And yet they have more lockdowns, more masking mandates, and more restrictions than the state of Florida. And state of Florida is essentially open, but again, leaving it to their residents to be careful, instructing them to wash their hands, wear masks when necessary, and social distancing when you can, and letting the citizens go back to as much of normal as they possibly can, eating in restaurants and everything that I said before. And so something's seriously wrong. We really need to take our country back. We cannot live this way. And I want to prove Hedia wrong in saying that we are going to go back to normal. I think at some point we're going to go back to normal. We can see it in states like Florida and in some parts of Texas. What I'm understanding, I don't know as much about Texas as I've heard about Florida, but it's only going to happen if we vote some of these idiots out and we stay strong and vote conservative, Christian, and Republican, and vote. And I'm not saying all Republicans are good. Understand that I'm not saying that all Republicans. We obviously have some problems with some Republicans. So it's not simply voting for a Republican. It's voting for the right Republicans and voting out those Republicans that are not doing us right, not following what it is that we want, and voting them out. We simply got to vote them out. We obviously got to vote out every Democrat. There's not one Democrat that we can say is doing the right thing. They are not the Democratic Party of old, and just have gone. That's totally gone haywire. I'm not. There's a lot of other words I want to use, and I'm really trying to be good and not and not say the things I want to say. All right, my friends. So I just wanted to come out and just kind of get to the new year started. I know we're not there yet, but we really have a lot of work to do in the upcoming year. in regard to our country. We need to work really hard to get our country back. We need to really pay attention to what's happening, and we really need to not be silent anymore and need to wake up. And yes, Carl's right. We need to vote out the rhinos. The rhinos in some way are a little bit even more dangerous than the Democrats. The Democrats are right up in front in their idiocy and the fact that they don't care, that they really are showing themselves as being Marxist socialists and really don't care about the middle class whatsoever. They are definitely for increasing the lower parts of our community and making things worse for them, and for putting more money in the wealthy and the elite. But the middle class, they really just don't care about. Just look at the recent stimulus bill. It's one of the most ridiculous things. I didn't want to get all into that because we know that it's stupid, and it's easy to see that they didn't care about Americans. They cared about illegal aliens. They cared about other countries, but they really did not care about America. The stimulus bill had nothing to do with Americans at all. It's $600 that they originally wanted to give us. It just tells you everything that you need to know, that we need to vote these idiots out. That everything else about that bill was ridiculous. All right, my friends, that's it. I just want to come on and just kind of get you started in what we're going to be talking about over the next year, and to make sure that you follow me on the AndyFalcoPodcast.com to go there. That'll take you to iHeartRadio, where you need to subscribe and follow me there. And we'll be talking more about this stuff as the days go on. And I hope you guys have a great, with all that, I hope you guys have a great night. But I want you to contact your friends that are all in Georgia. Contact your friends in Georgia, talk to them, make sure they're going to be doing the right thing over there in Georgia. And if they say that they're not, ask them why, and then see if you can't change their mind. But do it with love. Don't do it with anger, and don't call them morons. That's my tendency. All right, my friends. I love you guys. Have a great night, and we will see you on the next one. Take care. Talk to you later. Bye.